What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Matthew Minnis here. Today, we're going to talk about my favorite kind of investing, dividend investing, and more specifically, we're going to talk about dividend reinvestment plans, or DRIP. So DRIP is something that a lot of brokerages offer free of charge that can save you a lot of time, money. They can provide strategies, exponential growth, all sorts of things that are positive for your portfolio. Now, there are some cons as well, and this doesn't apply to everybody. So we're gonna go over that specifically in the video. There's two things I wanna bring up before we start this video. The first one is that I am not a financial advisor. These are just my opinions. It's up to you guys to take what I say, what other YouTubers say, or whatever other way that you research this topic and use that to make your own educated decisions. The second thing I wanna say is thank you to the 500 of you that are subscribed to the channel. We finally passed 500 subs about a week ago. It's honestly pretty crazy to think about, but only a few months ago, I had less than 100 subs. So it's just pretty cool. Exponential growth, just like investing. So with that said, let's get right into the video. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is who DRIP specifically applies to and who it could benefit. DRIP is for the long-term investor. It's not for the day traders. It's not for the crypto traders. It's for someone that believes in what they're investing in, whether it's individual stocks or ETFs, and they're going to invest in it over a long period of time, 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 years. DRIP is not as beneficial to someone that may be retired or someone that lives off their dividends or requires their dividends to pay their bills. So they need that passive income to actually pay things outside of investing. So to sum it up, if you're a long-term investor, taking advantage of DRIP can lead to long-term exponential growth for both your actual portfolio value and your monthly or quarterly dividends in the future for when you will need to live off of them. And the reason it doesn't help someone that's already retired, well, they can't take their dividends and reinvest it. They need to use it to pay their bills. So, pretty self-explanatory there. So now we're going to talk about the pros of DRIP. So once again, DRIP means Dividend Reinvestment Plan. All it does is as soon as the company that you invested in or the ETF that you invested in pays out your dividend, it automatically gets reinvested back into that individual investment. So why does that benefit us? Well, it saves us time. Whenever you get a dividend, instead of you having to log into your brokerage, now it's all automatic. You don't need to take that money and think, do I want to invest it back into this investment? Do I want to invest into something else? All that is taken away. Whenever you can automate things in life, especially if you're already working a 9 to 5 or you got kids, if you can find a way to save time, it's going to be beneficial. The next great thing about DRIP specifically is it allows you to dollar cost average over the long term. So if you want to keep reinvesting into something, whether you're putting your own money in on a monthly basis or whatever, doesn't matter. If you're collecting dividends and then reinvesting them, whether the stock goes up or it goes down, you're still reinvesting at the highs, the lows, and over time, you're dollar cost averaging. Now, dollar cost averaging is a great way in the long term to increase overall portfolio value. The big thought is time in the market will beat timing the market. Because some people are going to say, well, I don't use DRIP because I like to take my dividend and wait till there's a dip. Well, you can wait till there's a dip, but what happens if there's not a dip? What if it's like 2020 in May and from then on till now, we've just been going to the moon? And you're missing your opportunity to be making those gains. The next thing I want to talk about with DRIP is the exponential growth factor. So specifically, if you're someone like me that takes advantage of margin and you use the quadfecta plan or you just use Q yield specifically, I've talked about those in other videos, it can be extremely beneficial in paying off your margin faster and growing your portfolio. So we're going to look at the specific example that I have and we're going to talk about that. Okay, so what we have here is we have an Excel spreadsheet where I compare Q yield, the actual history, with dividend reinvestment and without dividend reinvestment. And now this applies to margin specifically if you want to pay off your margin and you have one of those two strategies. You can either do the reinvestment and wait till your portfolio grows, or you can pay it off with your monthly dividends. And then after a while, you'll have made all your money back and you still have a portfolio balance. So the first thing we're going to look at is without reinvesting. Our first month, we invested $5,000 back in July of 2016. We had 228 shares. Now remember, our shares aren't going up because we're not reinvesting. All we're doing is we're collecting the cash on a monthly basis. And I'm going to show you how long it takes all the way down here into 2025 to get to $5,000. Why do we want that $5,000? Well, our initial investment was $5,000. And if we had borrowed margin, we want to pay it off. So we need to get $5,000. Well, it took us a total of 114 months to get there. So just under 10 years to pay back our margin without reinvesting dividends. Now this is really cool because when you look at if you had used DRIP, you're going to be able to see right now how your shares increase every single month, and then your dividend increases, which means you're going to pay off your balance faster. So instead of paying off any margin, all we're doing is we're buying more shares until our total portfolio value goes higher. So we start with the same amount back in July of 2016. We have $5,000. We have 228 shares and our dividends start at $32. However, the next month, we've collected our dividend, we've reinvested it, DRIP did it automatically, we now have 230 shares. Well, a few years later, we're up to 320 shares. And then all the way down here, once we get to here, our portfolio value has finally hit $10,000, and that's in 2023. So it's a future because we started in 2016. Still took us a considerable amount of time. It actually took us 79 months, but 79 months compared to the 113 months if we weren't to reinvest. And when looking at this, we have a choice here. We now have 440 shares. We're collecting $85 a month. Do we want to pay back our $5,000 that we borrowed? Or do we want to just keep growing our portfolio and growing our dividends? It's really up to you guys. This is just an example. Remember, past results don't guarantee future results, but this is something to look at. So once again, I personally like DRIP because it allows me to grow my portfolio faster via the exponential growth from reinvesting the dividends. Remember, when it comes to collecting dividends, when you're building your nest egg, the more shares you acquire in the future, the more money you're going to get because each share is going to pay you a specific amount. So when it comes to something like Q yield, or if you have the quadfecta, you've got your Q yield, your NUSI, you've got your DEVO, your R yield, however you balance it, the more shares you acquire, the more money you're going to get paid out when you actually want to take advantage of that. We'll talk about my specific strategy at the very end of this. So now we're going to talk about the cons. I honestly don't think there's many cons other than what I discussed already. Obviously, if you need your dividends, then DRIP isn't a good move for you. The next thing is some people like to time the market, or they like to take their dividends from something that might be a little bit more conservative, something that maybe has a high dividend and not much volatility in the actual price of the investment, and they want to take that dividend and invest it in growth, something that might have a little bit more risk, but also might have a little bit more reward. So you can do that, but my question to them is, if you're going to do that, why didn't you just invest the money in growth from the start? It just doesn't make much sense to me. So that's just my thought. So if you consider that a con, then that's up to you. The next thing I want to discuss is some people believe, or they're just not educated and realize that DRIP does not provide any tax advantages. So the big problem with dividend investing is that even though you're not selling shares or realizing your gains, the dividends you receive are considered income. So you're paying taxes at the end of the year as ordinary income or qualified dividends, return of capital, all that stuff counts, whether it's DRIP or if you've actually just collected the money. So there is no benefit in terms of taxes if you're using DRIP. So just something to keep in mind. Once again, I don't really think that's a con because no matter what, you're going to have to pay it. But maybe that's a con for dividend investing in general for some people. Just depends on what kind of investor you are. So the last thing I'm going to talk about in this video is my personal strategy and also a slight mistake I made. So when it comes to that mistake, I used to believe that I could time the market. So I remember specifically when I first invested in Q yield back at the beginning of the year, I was like, wow, I really noticed that approaching the ex-dividend date, the price of Q yield is going up, and then the ex-dividend date comes and all of a sudden the price drops 1% or 1.5% or 0.5%. My thought was, well, I'm going to collect my dividend, which is a few days after the ex-dividend date. I'm going to collect that, and then I'm going to save it until right after that ex-dividend date to reinvest. And I'm going to beat the system. My cost basis is going to go down. I'm going to be winning. Except I don't want to call myself stupid, but I really didn't think about it. Is that by doing that, yes, the price was going down 1% and I was buying in. However, I skipped the month where if I had just held the money, I would have gotten another dividend. And Q yield on average pays around 1% a month. It's a little bit less right now, but just for easy numbers. So it didn't really make any difference at all. If I had just invested, I would have been paid the dividend and then I'd have the money. So don't make that same mistake as me. If you reinvest in the dividends, don't think you can time the market. I mean, maybe you can, but more than likely, it's better to just get your money in and then hold long term. If you're only going to be investing for a year, then that doesn't apply to you. But for the long-term investor, that's what matters. And then for my strategy specifically, I have a 10-year goal for my brokerage account. Now this is completely separate from my 401k and my Roth IRA. Those are for when I decide to retire. However, my brokerage account is going to be for passive income 10 years from now. I want to be able to take my family on vacations or do whatever it is I want to do with my passive income. So I'm building this account for the next 10 years, and hopefully at the end of that 10 years, I have a considerable amount of passive income that I can pull out. So I haven't touched a penny of my dividends. All of my dividends are set up on drip, and I take advantage of that because I don't want to take the time to reinvest myself. So if you like collecting monthly dividends or quarterly dividends or just passive income in general, make sure you hit the like button down below. Comment, let me know what you think about drip or dividend investing in general. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We do videos every single Thursday, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Take care.